see. Anyway, there we are. Hello, hello, here they come. I love early. You guys must have had really, really great parents that told you something along the lines of on time is 5 minutes late. Anybody ever heard of that? Adele, I bet you heard that when you were a little kid. That was my dad's refrain. On time is 10 minutes late, or whatever he used to say. Super exciting to see John, our friend John, friend Amy in Jacksonville. Adele says yes. I have that's what I have nightmares about, Adele, is like being late. You ever had like the college senior dream where you're like late for your finals? That actually happened to me, so that's more of a memory whenever it comes up. Oh yeah. There's Kathy Valley. Hi, Kathy Valley. We got to chat on the phone the other day. Hello. And I love your lighting, by the way. That's gorgeous. Roman's here. Guys, Chris is coming along in just a minute. How are you, Kathy?
I'm doing great. Good morning. I'm excited for this chat we're going to have today.
Chris threw me a curveball when he told me the title, that I was supposed to go set up the registration. It had something to do with Michael Jordan. So, okay, now you have my attention. Okay, let's see. Adele says I'm never late, as you know. That is true. And if I'm late, and by late I mean like if it is 12:59:30 and I haven't pushed the button, Adele has some button on her phone that makes every line of communication light up at the same time. My Google Hangouts, my text, my email, my phone call, my Skype, whatever it is, Adele will find you. And it's good because I've gotten distracted. Mike's here. Kathy, where are you practicing from? Where do you practice? I forget. While we're waiting on Chris, I'd love to make some connections here.
Oh, I practice in Park City, Utah, and then we have a team in Tucson, Arizona. So
fantastic. I love it. And then, so we've got John Herman. He's in the Chicago burbs, right? Or is it Chicago proper?
Suburbs.
Which ones in particular? Northwest, southeast?
Northwest, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Todd Martin's coming in. Todd Martin is our buddy in Louisville, Kentucky. Roman is in New Jersey. Selling quite a bit of property right now, even with the restrictions. So some of you who, while we're waiting for Chris, I would love for you to introduce yourself. I'm not familiar with Cheryl. I'm not familiar with Tom. I am familiar with Amy Barnett. She's in Jacksonville, Florida. Send her your referrals. Tom, where do you practice?
I am in Greater Boston, Massachusetts.
Fantastic. That's great.
All right. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
You betcha. You betcha. Fabian. I'm not familiar with where Fabian's from. Mike is somewhere in the Bay Area. Mike McKean, what's your town that you practice there mostly? You'll have to come off mute. Fabian, you'll have to come off mute. Y'all just let us know where you're from, because I'd love for you guys to, wouldn't it be cool to get a referral from this? You know, we did a coaching session. We have a few different little coaching groups that we work with. And we have this one, like, you know, kind of group session that we use as this place where we're tackling everything that's going on right now, and we meet once a week, and it's this big group, and Chris is, you know, very much about driving people to take action, and he in the last 10 minutes of this group encouraged everyone to try a new expired script. Literally, we had about 10 minutes, I think, and he gave the script, and there were some light bulbs going off about like, oh yeah, that's cool, I want to try it. So we had a fella who's a buddy of ours named JD Walters in Temple. Look him up, send him your referrals. He got to make 5 expired dials, most of whom didn't pick up. He got on the phone with one guy who didn't book. After the session was over, he got a call back. And the callback was one of the people that didn't answer the phone earlier. He has since listed a $625,000 acreage property for this fella, and has 3 more properties that the guy wants to sell because he's divesting his portfolio. It's about $3 million. And then he's got another one that he wants to send to us here in the Austin metro. From 5 expired dials. Isn't that wild when you just take action? Chris, I'm going to rename you because you're coming in as Bradley Pounds.
I already fixed it. Hey, there's a couple. I see a couple people on here that I already have been privy to a lot of the information that we're going to cover today. Some of our private coaching clients, and I see some of you guys, Todd and Teresa Who else? Am I missing anybody? Roman. So I like, you guys have already heard some of these little nuggets that I'm going to share today. So you know, you guys should tune in next week for our normal one-on-one call. It's not this, the next hour is not going to be worth your time. You guys should start taking action on getting more clients using some of the tactics we talked about. The content and the topics we're covering over the next hour, I don't think are going to be, I think your time would be better well spent taking action on the stuff we talked about on Wednesday.
All right. Catch you later.
Yeah. See you, Todd. Yep. See you, Roman. Bye, Teresa.
See you guys.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm forgetting anybody, but if there's somebody on here that's one of our private coaching clients, the next hour is probably not worth your time. Not that this is, because we've already talked about this stuff with our private coaching clients. We've been sharing with them for several weeks now. So I just want to, you know, be respectful of people's time. So cool. So the stuff, I've got a slide deck I'm going to share with you guys. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the economy right now, and you know, our goal is, you know, our purpose of as agents serving clients should not be to try to be like predictors of what's going to happen in the market. Our goal is just simply to like be market experts and share with consumers what's going on in the market. And so there's a lot of things that have happened and transpired over the last week. And it's important that, you know, you guys are, you know, up to speed on some of the like macroeconomic stuff that can have an impact on your local economy. And there's, you know, a lot of people in the real estate community that are coaches or whatever, and you know, they're spewing economic information about, for example, how the housing market's really healthy, you know, inventory is really low. And you know, I don't know if you guys have heard of the self-confirming bias that we have as human beings, but you know, when you want to believe something to be true, you seek out information to validate what you want to be true, versus like seeing a different opinion. And so I'm not here to argue with what anybody has said. I just want to, you know, help share kind of what's on a macroeconomic perspective, what's been going on, and you know, try to help position you to be a market expert for your clients, so you can differentiate yourself and get people committed to working with you as agents. And I see somebody on here that's a loan officer. Welcome, David. How you doing? So again, if anybody's on this call that's one of our private coaching clients, this is stuff we've been talking about for several weeks. So you could probably just, you know, tune out. I'd probably encourage you to plug in and take action on some of the stuff we talked about on Wednesday. This is really valuable and useful information, what I'm going to walk you guys through. And I think it'll give you some varying opinions of what's going on from a macroeconomic perspective, to help you become a market expert with your clients, and also differentiate yourself above the competition in the marketplace. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we're going to get started. Anybody have any questions? And if you have them now, great. Put them in the chat box, and anything that comes up as we're moving along, feel free to put them in the chat box, and I'll try to watch the chat box as we're going along here. All right. Let's see, Jacksonville, Florida. Cool. Welcome, Fabian. Moscow, Idaho. Hopefully I said that right. Got Rachel Shaw from Houston, Texas. Yeah, where's everybody located? Chime in on the chat box. I'm curious to hear what markets you're located in. All right, and let's get started. Okay, great. Can everybody see my screen okay? Maybe just quick thumbs up with your video if you're on video. Quick little thumbs up. See my slide deck? Okay, cool. Okay, just want to make sure my computer doesn't die on me. Let me plug it in. All right. Where's my little chat box here? I want to make sure I got the chat open. Okay, I'm with Chad and Sandy. Oh, cool. Hey, welcome, Amy. Amy Barnett. She's with the Chad and Sandy team. That's one of our expansion partners in Jacksonville, Florida. We got Katina Will from Detroit, Will Northeastern Pennsylvania, John Herman in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. Cool. So what's going on in the market from a macroeconomic perspective? It's really going to vary how it actually impacts you based off where in the United States you are. And let me just hit screen share here, and we're going to get started. Share screen. Okay, cool. Here we go. Okay, so PPP funds, oil, and Michael Jordan. What the heck does that have to do with real estate, and what's going to be the impact on real estate? Okay, so first off, before I talk about what's going on in the news, I think most of us can agree that as salespeople, 80% of our success as salespeople is predicated on our mindset. And right now you turn on the news and it's very easy to go down this rabbit hole of getting into a really negative mental headspace. And there's a famous quote out there, and I challenge you guys, anybody that knows who said this, put their name in a chat box. But what he said is be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy only when others are fearful. So chime in on the chat box if you know who said that. And so what's kind of interesting is, if you look back at some of the greatest companies created, since the dawn of America, a lot of them got started in a downward economy. And so whether you're a solo agent or you've got a team or a brokerage, we're in probably one of the greatest times ever to be able to gain massive market share. So for those of you guys that don't know my story, I started building a team and got started as an agent during the Great Recession. And I was able to gain a great deal of market share, probably a disproportionate amount of market share, more so than I could have in a upward climbing economy. And so I'm going to talk more about how you actually do that. Like, how do you actually get a bigger slice of the pie when people are fearful in the market? And so we're at a very, very unique inflection point in the economy where you guys as agents can take a disproportionate share of the transactions being done in the market. And so to do that, there's a couple things you've got to do. One, you've got to be a market expert, and you've got to understand what actually is going on in the economy. You don't have to, have a crystal ball and predict it. You just need to understand, and you have to be a messenger of all of the different things going on in the economy. And then third, you have to be able to differentiate yourself. And there's a few other little nuances, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of this slide deck. So first off, PPP funds. I'm sure you guys heard in the news, there was a lot of media, blasting the government about the PPP funds, the Payroll Protection Program, getting drained on April 17th, and everybody was up in arms. And like Ruth Chris, took like $20 million, and Shake Shack took $10 million. And now they've since said they're going to give that money back. And then a bill was proposed last week and then signed at the beginning of this week, saying that they were going to extend the PPP program and give an additional couple $100 billion for PPP funds. So the reason I bring this up is it's important everybody on this call know, whether you have employees or not, you're all eligible for the PPP funds. So if you're a solo real estate agent, you have the ability to apply for this. And that's predicated on the idea that you pay yourself a salary. So, I would imagine most of you guys hopefully pay yourself a salary to reduce your self-employment tax, which is 15%. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, basically the strategy that's recommended for real estate agents is you set up a LLC as your entity, and you file what's called a subchapter S corporation for tax filing purposes. And so this is something your CPA can help you with. And then you pay yourself a modest salary, and then everything above your salary from your commission checks is considered a shareholder distribution, which is taxed at a lower rate. So if you guys do that, then, obviously your salary, you can get covered under the PPP funds, and they're going to give you 2 months worth of your salary. So anyways, one of the things that maybe you have or you haven't heard about in the news is about how these huge national banks are, like failing at getting small business owners the funds. They've really struggled getting the small to medium business owners the funds. And so I thought really quickly I'd just kind of explain what's going on here. First off, the big national lenders, I think we all know as real estate agents, they suck at helping consumers get home loans. And I think most people have figured out recently that they also suck at helping small to medium business owners get access to funds when things like this pop up. So national banks are really, really good with helping consumers from a depository perspective, like depositing your money in the bank and like having access to ATMs no matter where you go. That's a big value proposition to a national bank. And then from a business perspective, national banks are really, really good at helping out large institutions. So think like the Fortune 1000 companies that have to deal with the bureaucracy and compliance from a banking perspective across state lines or across international lines. And so national banks are great at that, but they really suck with small to medium businesses. So there's a lot of stories out there about these state chartered banks. For example, in the state of Texas, there's a bank called Frost Bank, and they got their customers access to $8 billion in PPP funds for all of their clients. And it's a state chartered bank. Meanwhile, Wells Fargo, a national bank, they only got like 700 to 800 million in funds for their clients. So a state chartered bank literally got 10x more funds than Wells Fargo, and it's a state bank in the state of Texas. So something everybody on this call should think about is, one, if you haven't taken advantage of the PPP funds, you should. And secondarily, if you're using a national bank, you should consider switching to a state chartered or a regional bank. Because there's a lot of competitive advantages for you as a business owner to be working with a state chartered bank versus a regional bank. And this, PPP fund thing has actually, kind of highlighted that to the nth degree. Furthermore, something some of you may or may not know about is you can negotiate a deal with state chartered and regional banks with the money you have on deposit at these banks. So, for example, when you sign up with a new account with a state chartered or regional bank, you can get them to agree to pay a certain number of what are called BIPs based off the revolving balance in your account. And so national banks are not going to negotiate with you some favorable rate that they'll pay on your revolving balance. And so the amount of money you can get paid back on your revolving balance could be as high as like 90 to 120 bips, which is, for example, to keep numbers easy, let's say you have $100,000 in your bank account. Each month they would pay you back 90 to 120 bips on that balance, which could be, for example, $900 to $1,200 a month. And so that over the course of a year adds up to being a pretty substantial amount of money. I mean, if I asked each of you, could you close more deals with an extra $5,000 to $10,000 to apply towards lead generation? I think every single person on this call would agree that, yeah, that would help you move the needle in your business. So again, if you have a national bank, you should definitely consider switching to a state chartered or regional bank and taking advantage of this, and also negotiating a more favorable deal. The money you guys deposit with a state chartered or regional bank is incredibly valuable to a state chartered or regional bank. Without going too much into the weeds about how the banking system works, the Federal Reserve says that a bank only has to keep 10% cash on hand for every dollar. So let me give you guys an example. Let's say somebody on this call goes and deposits $100 at a bank, at one of these state chartered banks. That bank now has the ability to go to the Federal Reserve and get 10 times that in funds to loan out to other institutions, right? So the big national banks have the advantage of lots of consumers using them. The local state chartered banks don't. So your deposits are really, really valuable to these local state chartered banks because they can lend out 10 times whatever you put in there, based off the Federal Reserve requirement of having 10% of deposits in your account, equivalent to 10x your loans outstanding. So that's why they're willing to negotiate and pay you these bips and pay you money based off your revolving balance. Now, obviously, if you have a ton of money sitting in there, you should put in mutual funds, investments, whatever. But your revolving balance can pay out pretty nicely. We have a guy on the call now, David, who's I know David. He's based here in Central Texas, and he's a very successful and experienced loan officer. And David, I know you have the benefit of working. He worked at a credit union bank. And I know, David, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's move on. So I want to talk about the industries that are impacted because of what's going on with coronavirus. And this is important because real estate is very local in nature, meaning like how your economy in Houston, Texas will do versus Austin, Texas. They're two, even though they're in the same state, they're two very different markets. And so Houston, Texas, for example, is very much, got this huge oil and gas sector. And so, as you know, the oil and gas market has gotten crushed in the last several weeks. And so, you need to be mindful of that in terms of what's going to happen to real estate prices in your local market. So if you guys are in a market that has a percentage of your economy that's largely dictated by one of these specific industries, I can assure you that you're going to feel the pain in your local market, and that there is a possibility that in the coming months, like the next 6, 12, 18 months, you're going to see prices potentially go down. If you're in a market where inventory is really low, like let's say, for example, there's only a month worth of inventory, you may move into a more balanced market. But you can expect the days on market for your listings to start increasing as the unemployment filings go up. So I can't, there's people on this call that are in all varying different types of markets, and each market will weather the storm differently. So again, if one of these markets, if you're located in a market where a large portion of your economy is predicated on the jobs in one of these specific markets, you should probably buckle the hatches and start thinking about strategies on how you as an agent can pivot to take advantage of the opportunities that will present themselves as a function of these markets going down in your respective markets. So I want to talk about oil for a minute. So, I think it's important, even though we're agents and, we don't have to be oil experts, but on Monday, the price of oil per barrel dropped to negative $37. WTI stands for West Texas Intermediate. And this is the standard symbol used to track the price of a barrel of oil. And the price of oil is largely predicated on the futures market. And when you hold on to a futures contract, it says that, when that futures contract expires, if you have that contract in your hand, you will accept delivery of the oil. And so one futures contract is equivalent to you buying and accepting 1,000 barrels of oil. And so there's a lot of people in the investment community that trade barrels of oil. And so there were a lot of investors out there that did not want to accept the delivery of this oil, right? And so they were literally paying people to take these contracts off their hands so they would accept the delivery of oil. And so the contracts expired on Tuesday of this week, and then that's when you saw the price of oil go back up because the May futures contract for oil is trading at about $14. So at the end of the day, like, what the hell does any of this have to do with real estate? And one, you should be mindful of this because what's going on again, if you're in a market that a large percentage of the economy is driven by oil and gas, you should be aware that all of the facilities across the United States that store oil are reaching capacity. And so there's literally nowhere to store oil. And so there's a high likelihood that the market is only going to get worse, and that we could see over the next 3, 6, 9 months, the price of oil stay negative or in the single digits for several months to come. And so from a real estate perspective, real estate prices typically lag what you see in the real estate market. So, you guys saw the real estate market, you saw the stock market crash in the month of March, right? Like Dow Jones and all those things dropped 20 to 30%. But I'm willing to bet every single person on this call, you guys probably had a really good March and April, but your pipeline is pretty much predicated on what you were doing in January and February, right? So there's this lag between the real economy and what you see on Wall Street. So again, if you're in a market affected by oil and gas, you need to buckle down and prepare, because there's going to be a huge influx of listings hitting the market from people losing their jobs. Another interesting thing about oil prices and how it impacts real estate is a lot of the components of a home, the actual products used to build a home, oil has a huge impact on their prices. So for example, carpet, right? Like when a builder buys carpet, the carpet that they put in homes, like the twine that they put on top of that material for carpet is largely a petroleum product. And so the price of carpet, for example, is going to be going down substantially. The price of like 2x4s in the wood, like think about the transportation costs to deliver these from the mill to the distributor to the job site. So the overall cost of building a home from a cost of goods sold perspective is going to be going down substantially. Another thing that's going to happen is as unemployment filings continue to grow, the cost of labor is going to go down. So people will be more likely to negotiate more favorable deals with home builders, like subcontractors, et cetera, because typically in a market that's declining, construction typically slows down, right? Just overall construction slows down in a declining market. So if you're located, the reason I'm saying all this is if you're located in a market where there's a lot of new construction and you're an agent that represents resale listings, well, in the coming 6 to 12 months, you can expect that those new home builders are going to be able to put a lot of pressure on the resale home listings that are homes that are older. So again, if you're in a market that's not land locked, this is going to be something coming down the pipe, is these new construction homes are going to put downward pressure on real estate prices as home builders can build cheaper homes, right? And obviously, price is a function of supply and demand. So, home builders have to build homes to make money. And so they can be inflating supply with, homes that cost less to build, which ultimately can put downward pressure on resale homes. So be mindful of that if you're in that kind of market. One of the, there's two things that drive real estate prices. One is interest rates, and two is unemployment. And if you've been following the news, unemployment last week hit 21 million people that went and filed for unemployment. And then on Wednesday of this week, an additional 4.4 million people have filed for unemployment. So that number is huge. Like that number is massive. There's 160 million people that are eligible to work, that are like 18 to 65 years of age. And a massive percentage of them, 1 in 6, basically are filing unemployment. And so again, if you're in a market where supply is really low and it's a seller's market, you can expect the days on market to go up and for the market to potentially move more into an equilibrium. Now, if you're in a luxury market or there's a lot of supply in your market prior to coronavirus, as a buyer's market, it's going to move into an extreme buyer's market. A common question a lot of people are wondering is the actions being taken by the Federal Reserve, is it enough? The Federal Reserve has committed to injecting $5 trillion. And for those of you guys that were in the real estate market during the Great Recession, they put in about the same amount of money. It was, is $4 to $5 million in 2008, 2009 through quantitative easing, buying mortgage-backed securities. Again, do me a favor, chime in on the chat box. How many people were in real estate back in 2008 and 2009? How many people built their business back in 08 and 09? Chime in on the right-hand side. Brett Jennings. Hey, Brett, how are you, buddy? Kevin Clancy. Man, we have some heavy hitters on here. Kevin Clancy, I know your team sells a lot of homes. Maureen Rooker, she's a heavy hitter here in Austin, the Austin area. We got some badasses on this call. Nice. Okay, cool. Let me go back to broadcasting my screen. So in 2008, 2009, a lot of money got injected into the US economy. And what happened is the market did like a V. The market like went shot right back up. Like the market literally hit its bottom right as the Federal Reserve announced that they're going to inject a bunch of money into the US economy. So for those of you guys that were in the market in 2008, 2009, most of us remember the market like froze. It literally froze for 9 months. We had clients that were getting loan locks, like they were getting their loans locked at a rate, right? And our buyers had the freaking U-Haul trucks ready to move, and the banks ripped the loan out of their hands and did not fund the deal. Like, can y'all even like fathom? And like, it's crazy, right? So we went through this like period of time in 08 and 09. The market literally froze. The bank ripped all these loans out like days before they were supposed to close and fund. And then as soon as the Fed stepped in and injected like $4 to $5 trillion, you see the markets start going back up on the incline, and that's the V. And that's exactly what happened in 08. And so a lot of people are hoping that happens again. But the challenge is there's much more than one industry being impacted by the coronavirus. So instead of it just being the banking industry right now, it's like over a dozen different industries, which I just shared on the slide deck. Can you guys do me a favor and let me know if you see my, can y'all still see my slide deck? I want to make sure everybody can still see my slide deck. Chime in on the right-hand side if you can still see it. Okay.
We cannot.
Okay. Let me reshare my screen here. I appreciate the positive feedback, Maureen. Thank you. Maureen is in our, she's been joining our internal training about conversions and, converting buyers and sellers, objection handling, listing presentation, buyer presentation, et cetera. So hang on one second. Let me just get my slide deck pulled back up. It seems to have disappeared on me. Can you guys do me a favor just so I have a point of reference of where everybody is in their business, and chime in on the chat box? And I'm curious, how many homes did you guys sell in 2019? And then what were your goals in 2020? Just chime in on the right. I'm just kind of curious where everybody is. I'm going to get my slide deck back up. I hit the wrong button. Cool. Thanks for chiming in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Sorry for the delay there. All right, great. Can everybody see the screen? Maybe a thumbs up? Thumbs up if you see the screen. David, can you see the screen? Okay, great. All right, let's get back to where we were. So these are all the industries that were impacted, right? So it's like, it's not just the banking industry like 2008. And so the question is, does the Federal Reserve have enough money to get us out of this, this rut? And to be completely honest with you guys, I'll give you my opinion. Our opinions, I don't think really matter. None of us have a crystal ball, and our clients don't really expect us to have a crystal ball. They just want us to educate them on what's going on. But I'm a little pessimistic if the government has enough money to save every single one of these industries. I just don't think they have enough money. Like $5 trillion is not enough. It was enough to save the banking industry. I don't know if it's enough to save all of these other industries. If you added up all of these industries, they're, the gross GDP they produce is far greater than the banking industry. So anyways, that's a little worrisome. So again, there's a couple different models that people are guessing at as in terms of what's going to happen in the economy. So at the top left-hand corner, this is called the U. So a lot of people are saying like maybe we could go into a U, which means it's an extended period of time where we're in like this depressed or recessionary market. There's also the V, which is the bottom one right here. This is 2008, and right there at the bottom of that V, that's when the Federal Reserve stepped in and they injected a ton of money. But between the end of the second quarter of 2008 and the third quarter of 2008, the real estate market literally went into a freeze. And like right there at the bottom is when we had clients, like literally their loan locks were getting ripped out of their hands and they had the U-Haul trucks ready and the deals weren't closing. The top right-hand corner, this is a W. So what had happened in 1980, just people that don't know, in 1980, the price of the oil plummeted. It was one of the lowest periods from a pricing perspective. So price of oil plummeted in 1980. The federal government stepped in to save the oil and gas market, and boom, the market started going back up. But then what happened after the market started going back up is the economy entered a deflationary period. Deflation means the value of a dollar actually goes up versus goes down. And so over the last decade or 2 decades, we've experienced inflation, which means like, if you hold on to a dollar, right, tomorrow, it's technically worth a little bit less, which is why you've heard all this messaging about like holding on to cash is dumb, right? Well, in 1981, the dollar entered this deflationary period where it was actually worth more. So people didn't want to actually spend their dollars. And so then the economy went back into a recession. So this is the W they were talking about. And then, so in 1981, they started increasing interest rates. So I don't know if you guys, again, I don't know how many history buffs we have on here, but in the mid 1980s is when interest rates went up to like 15, 16, 17%. They went crazy high. So the reason I'm sharing all this with you, and the reason I'm telling you guys all this, is because no matter what happens, there's opportunities that exist. With every point of adversity, there's an opportunity that exists. And so as agents, we just have to know how to capitalize on the opportunities. Buying and selling a home is largely life event driven. So like people go to sell a home because of death, divorce, financial distress, health distress, job relocation. They have a baby, they need a bigger house, right? So like it's largely life event driven. So real estate is not this, luxury item. Shelter is a necessity. And so the overall piece of the pie may get a little bit smaller, but there's still a piece of pie. It doesn't go to zero, right? And so, the big question is like, as an agent, how do you grow your slice of that pie? And so that's really what, we need to be thinking about, irrespective of what happens with the economy, right? So my kind of thesis is like, we need to basically plan for the worst and hope for the best. And so there's a lot of things we have to ask ourselves. How do we plan for the worst and how do we, hope for the best? So one little quick thing I'll share with you guys is this was published by NPR. And in Singapore, they started lifting the shelter-in-place orders and social distancing. And Singapore was praised in the month of March for doing the best job in Asia for stopping the spread of coronavirus. If anybody knows anything about Singapore, it's one of the cleanest countries on planet Earth. And just to give you an example, in Singapore, if you spit on the side of the street, police officers have the power to literally whip you with their batons, and they can fine you up to $1,000. I don't know how many of you guys have virtual assistants, like in the Philippines. We have a couple of VAs that work for us, and one of our VAs sent me a video of the president speaking. And the president said, if anybody, this is in Asia, right? So if the president said, if anybody leaves their home and it's not to get food, the police have been instructed to shoot and kill. Shoot and kill. And I watched the video and I'm hearing the president saying, you're going to be shot and killed if you leave your home for anything other than food. So, these are, very much different, the cultures are very different, right? So this, I wanted to share this with you because this is like the possible like worst case scenario is that, in the US, we lift shelter in place orders, we stopped social distancing, and then this comes back, right? And then this would undoubtedly put us into a Great Depression, like undoubtedly, like no doubt it would. So this is literally the worst thing that could happen. But, we want to hope for the best, which is what happened in 2008, where the economy, went back up. So, I started asking myself, like, what can you do to, position yourself as an agent and broker owner to have success, no matter what the hell happens, like recession, a W, a V, whatever the hell happens. How do you position yourself? And so for those of you guys that are sports fans and have been watching the Michael Jordan documentary, ESPN's doing a 10-week series videoing, and interviewing people about the Chicago Bulls dynasty. And so, I haven't actually watched them yet because I have 2 young little kids. And so I've been reading all the cliff notes, and there's like one thing that, keeps coming up about the Chicago Bulls and what made them so great, and more specifically, Michael Jordan. And, the underlying thing you discover is Michael Jordan had these unique core values that were his guiding principles in terms of how he lived his life. So, for example, in the first episode of the Michael Jordan documentary, they talk about how Michael Jordan, when he was a rookie, after one of their games, they were in Peoria, Illinois, and after the game was over, he was in the hotel trying to find his teammates, and he started knocking on a bunch of random hotel room doors. And he knocks on one door, and he hears all these players kind of scurry around, or heard people scurry around, and he hears people going shh, 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 and it's going like this, right? And so somebody's like, "Who's there?" And he says, "It's MJ," and they let him in. And MJ walks in the room, and he says, everybody on the right side of the room is doing lines of cocaine. Everybody on the left side smoking pot, getting high, and then there's like a bunch of guys with like hookers and doing bad stuff. And I don't know if you guys could imagine putting yourself in that position when you've got your whole team, doing all these illegal activities. And you're a rookie, and Michael Jordan, decided instead of joining and partaking in that, he was going to leave and not have anything to do with it. Which he obviously ran the risk of alienating his entire team and running the fear of like them being turned into the police and all this stuff, right? So like that was one of the early things in his career he did, and throughout his career, you learn like he lived this life by very specific core values that, were his guiding principles in terms of how he acted each day. So now back to real estate, the story I'll share with you guys specific to me, in my case, is about 10 years ago, I recruited 20 agents to join my team. And after 12 months time, 18 of those agents only sold 18 homes. But as a group, we sold collectively 100. And so me and one other guy sold 80, the other 18 agents sold 18. And for the subsequent year, first off, I let go of every single one of those agents, and I put my head in the sand, and I thought I was a total failure as a leader. And I went down this path, like trying to figure out what do I need to be looking for in people to find successful agents. And so when I was in business school, I learned that you need to have a mission statement and a vision and core values. And so I wrote all that stuff down on a piece of paper. And to be honest, I think I studied a couple other companies and like copied and pasted and modified their vision, mission, and core values. It sounded pretty good. And so I started hiring more people, and I still struggled. I still couldn't find, people that were consistently successful. But on occasion, I got lucky. And so over the course of the, following 2 to 3 years, I got to a point where I basically had a little roundtable discussion with everybody on our team that was highly successful and that I respected and appreciated. We went around in a roundtable and just started talking about like what made us unique and like what were the things that made us really, really unique. And what I discovered is this happened very organically, is that we all had these type of internal things that we valued as human beings. And so for those of you guys that have read our book, the $1 Million Real Estate Team, in the book, we talk about this word freedom. And one of the things I recognized with all of the people that were, massively successful on our team and that I found, I had a lot of respect for, was every single person was seeking the same thing. Everybody was aspiring to find freedom. But freedom wasn't this idea of sitting on a beach and drinking pina coladas. Freedom was a state of mind. It was a state of mind to be able to choose to do what you want when you want. And the thing that every single one of these people exuded was they lived through these very unique core values to help them find that aspirational goal of freedom. So for example, the word F stands for fierce commitment. So I have no idea how many people on here have ever tried prospecting leads or calling expireds or withdrawals or doing things like that, but it's really, really difficult, right? It's like when you first get started, it's really, really difficult, and you have to commit a great deal of time. And you have to be willing to embrace change, and you have to be super resourceful to learn how to conquer whatever's in front of you. So the one thing that I want to share with you guys is first off, for us as agents and broker owners, is it all starts up here. It all starts up in our head. And if there's anything I could encourage you to do, it's be mindful of the unique core values and the guiding principles that are going to lead you to success. So for example, when you find yourself in a moment in time when you feel like you keep hitting your head against the wall and you want to give up, just remember the guiding principle that's going to help you find success is being fiercely committed to the process and not giving up and getting resourceful, finding other people that have done what you're trying to do. Like for example, if you guys are on this call right now and you've never experienced a downturn or a recession, the good news is there's lots of us out there that have. And so go learn from others. If you've ever seen on Shark Tank, Damon John on Shark Tank, he said, pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper. You should write that down. Pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper. Does anybody remember MySpace? Does anybody remember MySpace, the social network? So there's lots of cases of this you can see through the history of time about pioneers getting slaughtered and settlers prospering. It kind of makes me think about the real estate flipping business. Whenever you see somebody flip a house in a bad neighborhood and they're the first person to flip a house, they never get the same price per square foot premium that the guys that are a year down the road get after several flips have been created in a neighborhood. So don't be a pioneer, be a settler. And what I mean by that is seek out somebody else to help you overcome, whatever challenge you're having, to overcome some wall that's in front of you that's preventing you from finding success in a declining market. Because there's people out there that have done this. Don't reinvent the wheel. The real estate industry has been around for freaking decades and decades and decades. So I want to talk tactically about the things you should probably be mindful of. So first off, this came from Gary Keller's book, The $1 Million Real Estate Agent. And what he says is, we need to be focused on leads, listings, and leverage, right? So I want to talk about leads for a minute. First off, if you're in a place where you're spending money on lead generation, one of the most important things you have to be mindful of is your cost per lead or your cost per thousand, also known as CPM. So if you spend money on radio, TV, billboard, you buy, you're personally going into Facebook and building your campaigns, they charge you largely based off brand impressions and CPM, which is cost per thousand. So if you're buying or you're doing direct mail, you typically buy direct mail on a cost per thousand basis, or you're doing newspapers or magazines. So first off, if you're spending money on lead generation, it's really important, number one, instead of cutting your ad spend, keep it constant and negotiate the cost per thousand down significantly. Because this is how you're going to be able to drive your client acquisition costs down. So for example, if you guys are spending money on Zillow, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Zillow, if you were spending $10,000 on Zillow, now they're only charging $5,000. So no matter what you're spending money on, keep your lead generation spend the same, but negotiate a better deal so you get twice the number of leads. That is how you gain additional market share in a declining market. I would encourage every single person on this call to log into the MLS in your respective market and go look at how many homes have gone pending sale in just the last 7 days. just the last 7 days, how many homes have gone pending sale. I'm willing to bet every single person on this call would be like shocked at the number of homes going pending sale with all these, crazy things we have in place, shelter in place, right? Like only essential workers working. And yet there's a crazy number of homes going pending sale. So first off, on the lead side, be very mindful of your cost per lead and your cost per thousand. If you are largely buyer agent focused, I might encourage you to pivot to the listing side because you have a little bit more control over your pipeline and you can create more predictability. And then third, if you're on a team, right? If you're building a team, it's really important that you're constantly top grading your team. Like you've got to be really mindful of your team's productivity. And the number one thing I've been talking about, it's literally the number one indicator of future success of any agent. That KPI is talk time. How much time are you actually spending talking to prospects? And so you can measure talk time pretty easily using a phone system like RingCentral, or if you're using a speed dialer, for example, or any kind of dialer for that matter, you can actually track talk time. And so your talk time is a function of your level of effort. And so if I asked you guys, like, if you saw two people go into a gym to work out and one guy does 100 reps and the other guy does 10 reps, who's going to get stronger, right? So the same can be said for agents. For agents, it's not a function of like how many reps you're doing at the gym. It's a function of how much time are you spending talking on the phone to new prospects and spending time trying to set appointments. So that's the earliest indicator that can predict your future success. And it's the one thing you have to be going all in on. And if you have a team and you're giving leads or you're trying to recruit people, it's important you are focused on people that are hammering that one KPI. Now, if you're a rainmaker out there crushing it in your own right as a rainmaker, it's really important that you're not getting bogged down in tasks that can be completed by operational staff that could be making 15, 20, 30 bucks an hour. The highest income producing activity you can do as a rainmaker is focusing on talk time, getting in front of as many prospects as humanly possible. So there's a lot of lead sources out there that actually don't cost a single thing, and they're available at your fingertips, like literally free leads. And I'm not talking about the free leads from Craigslist or Facebook or things like that. There's a lot of sources out there for free leads that don't cost anything. You just have to pick up the phone and call the leads. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is probably a conversation for a different time. But there's not a limitation on leads. And even if you don't have a lot of money to spend on lead generation, there's an ample number of places to go to get free leads. So I'm going to finish it up and open it up for Q&A for any questions anybody has. Brad and I are doing a short-term coaching gig to help people during coronavirus because we have experienced what's going on. So Brad and I are not building a coaching business. Our full-time thing is we have a group in Austin, Texas, and then we have 10 expansion partners across the US and Canada, and we're trying to expand our business. But we wanted a way to give back to agents and people across the country. And all of the money that comes into our coaching program is going to be given to people that were previously furloughed and be donated in the form of like masks and things like that to healthcare workers. I just actually had somebody show up to my house literally right before this webinar from the Seton Hospital system and pick up 100 masks. So I have a direct contact for masks from a factory, and we're getting those N95 masks. So anyways, 100% of the proceeds are not going in my pocket or Brad's pocket. They're all being dispersed. And so this is just something we're doing to help out agents. We're going to do this through the end of July. And so anybody that signs up for group coaching, it's once a week. We meet collectively as a group and we talk about the free lead sources that are available at your fingertips, how to get access to the data, it's scripting, systems, processes, technology, lead conversion training. And if you want to do one-on-one, it's a little bit more money. It's $3.99. But this is something we're doing through the month of July for people that are interested. If you guys look at the chat box right now, Adele on our team is going to post a link if anybody's interested in signing up for this. And Adele, can you go ahead and put that in there for everybody? Cool. Maureen says she's in. Awesome. Who else is interested? Let me see a show of hands. How many people are interested in this? It's $99 a month, by the way, and we meet every single week. And these are all live calls. Gloria says, yes, she's in. Amy, you're already good because we work with your team leads. Michael Davis said he's already in. Katina says she's interested. Hey, Michael, how's it been so far? You've been a part of our group coaching. How's it been so far? How much have you learned? Feel free to unmute yourself. How many other people are interested? Again, it's 99 bucks. That's per month. So, I mean, super cheap. I guarantee you, your ROI is going to be unquantifiable.
I'm actually doing the whole coaching thing too. So the one-on-one.
How much money would you say you've made off all this, Mike?
That would be hard to say, but I mean, you guys, the thing that's so amazing is that you actually test these things, then tell people after you get results, then you talk about them. And it's not just pie in the sky stuff. And it's pretty amazing.
Marine, yes. Yeah, we're working we got lots of people in Austin. So for those of you guys that, again, and to Mike's point, I don't know if you guys know this, but we're not teaching theory. So not a knock on other coaching companies out there. I think they're all great. And in fact, me and Brad have personally been through all of them. Like I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in all these coaching businesses, and they're all amazing. Like every single one, you can learn a great deal. I see Ray Mayhorn on here. I know Ray, we've worked with you. Hi, Ray. How are you doing? And so all these coaching programs are great, and they can add a tremendous amount of value to your business. And it's one of the greatest secrets and shortcuts to success is learning from other people. And so I think that the unique thing with Brad and I is we use Austin, Texas as our R&D lab, and we have a very large marketing budget. Our advertising spend in Austin is over 7 figures. And so I don't know if anybody in Austin, I'm sure, I think we have some people in Austin in here at competing brokerages. Marine, I know you're at a competing brokerage at Remax. You could probably validate this, that we spend an insane amount of money on lead generation in Austin. And just, yeah, feel free to validate if you can agree with me on that. So anyways, we're able to spend a ton of money, and we split test a lot of stuff. So everything we share is not theoretical. This is stuff we're testing and split testing. And then we share these systems, processes, lead generation strategies, training, et cetera, with our expansion partners. So as Marine says, yes, I see them everywhere. So anyways, this isn't, our ultimate goal is just to add a tremendous amount of value to people across the country during this challenging time. So did everybody learn a lot today? Was this helpful? David, I want to hear from you, David. You're in the lending world.
Yeah, it's great stuff, Chris. I like that pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper. Everything that you're saying on here, I mean, I chime in as a lender so that I can try to, everything's shut down right now with COVID, right? So the best thing I can do is spend all my time on my laptop just learning as much as possible. So being here and listening to you and getting this information is there's not a lot of other places out there where you're getting this kind of stuff. It's great stuff, great advice, great tips.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. All right, guys. So we're going to send you a link to sign up. Looks like we got quite a few people signing up. Katina, Katie, John, Mike's already in, Marine's interested. So you guys are going to get an email from Adele with a link. Yeah, we had a billboard in Austin, Texas when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were running for president. And I think somebody else, it went viral. We got over 1 million hits. And the billboard on I-35 said, if you're thinking of moving to Canada after the election, give us a call. I shared that with a couple people, and I know some other real estate teams use that billboard across the country, but I got to do a bunch of cool interviews on like CNN and CNBC. Anyways, we've split tested a bunch of stuff. Something we've been talking about in our coaching program is how to integrate giving back to the community from a lead generation perspective. So for example, we did we were posting on KLBJ News Talk Radio about donating mass. And we were able to, I was able to deliver a state of the market presentation on KLBJ News Talk Radio, and it got over 20,000 hits, and we picked up 7 listings that 1 week. So I gave the presentation, the actual state of the market presentation, I gave it to everybody in our coaching program. And then we actually went through an exercise where I showed you how you can go on Facebook, you can tag like local news authorities to get, get free press. And I also have a recording of that state of the market presentation I did. You guys can watch it. So anybody that signs up, if you guys are interested in seeing that, for example, I'll give you a copy of my slide deck, the state of the market. It's the same. It's the exact thing I delivered on the News Talk radio station that got 20,000 hits and picked up 7 listings. And then we also have the actual video of me like giving the presentation, so y'all can see that it's recorded. So anybody that signs up, you guys can get access to all that. Just ask Adele to send you a copy of it. The link is in the chat box. If you guys want to take action right now, just copy and paste that. We literally spun up this landing page, so it's not like the most beautiful landing page ever. It's chriswaterscoaching.com /retool opt-in page. And you guys can sign up to get on our coaching program. The other, one other little nugget I have not mentioned yet is that our group in Austin, we have internal training for our buyer's agents, listing agents, and leadership. And so for anybody that signs up for a coaching, we're also going to give you an invitation to join our internal training that we do for our own staff and agents for our team in Austin. And so that training happens multiple times, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we go through buyer agent role playing and conversion training and objection handling. We go through the listing agent consultation, listing training and objection handling. We also go through leadership training. Like if you're an agent trying to build a team, it's important you start building your bench of potential leaders to help you level up the organization as a whole. And Susanna Madrano runs that training. And so I have each of our team leads running that training. And so, this is all layered on top of the group coaching. And if you sign up for the one-on-one. So guys, thanks so much for plugging in. Hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend. Again, the link is in the chat box, and we're also going to send you an email. We're going to do this coaching probably through the end of July. And not a single one of these dollars is going into my pocket or Brad's. It's all going to be given to previous furloughed workers, ordering masks and all kinds of cool stuff to help out healthcare workers. Click on the link and look forward to seeing you. Our next call will start next week on Thursday. So if you guys sign up today, the next group coaching call is on Thursday. Cool. All right. Thanks for coming in, David. Great to see you. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you next week on Thursday.